Good morning, everyone. We are here today to listen to a very interesting presentation in the area of interior design. We have been waiting for this webinar for a long time as Kohelika, today's speaker, was traveling and she's been kind enough to give us a date immediately on her return. So here we are today to listen to what she has to say. I hope you all have settled down. So here we are. Today's webinar is on evolving creativity in interior design. I think all of us are intrigued by the area of interior design. We do understand there's a lot of technicality involved, but what really makes any outstanding statement would be through creativity and the statement of the designer. And that is exactly what Kohelika will take us through her journey, talk to us about how she has done it. And I'm very sure this is going to inspire many of us over here. Let me give a few words on what Kohelika's background is. She is not only just a celebrated architect and designer, I think there's a lot more to her, which I have requested her to add on after post when I finish speaking. She is also the CEO and creative director of K2 India. She's had her education from the Pratt Institute of Design, New York, and has uh, the prestigious accolades like the Edita Award for the Designer of the Year. She has been awarded that, and I think that should really inspire all of us to try to achieve something of that. Her projects have graced the covers of the Architectural Digest India, and what we are here to listen to her is on her design philosophy, her rich and diverse experiences. So I will invite Kohelika very soon. Kohelika, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. So let me start by some of the most, basic things, which is like, well, let me introduce myself again, in fact. So by training, I am an architect. By practice, I am an architect, interior designer, and a carpenter. I established K2 India with my boss, my mom, in 2010. And this was after I had moved back and I had been working as an architect for 5 years and struggling also a lot and doing all sorts of projects like factories and guard rooms, etc. And then in 2010, my mother, who was a restorer and a designer, said, look, I mean, this is crazy. You doing your own thing. I'm doing my own thing. What's going on? So I said, okay. I said, we'll merge our companies and we'll create a brand where I can practice architecture and, we under the same kind of umbrella. So we set up K2 India in 2010. And then I'd always been very interested in furniture. My father was he was a very keen carpenter when he was in school. My mother, for many years, restored furniture and also did did copies of furniture for the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Hyderabad house. And so and ran a very successful furniture brand as well. I continued in that process, but I started defining the furniture in a more contemporary and modern way and moved forward with that. And a couple of years ago, we established Coco by K2 India, which is our furniture arm of the company. So on a daily basis, I will be working on architecture project, which in a regular view is a larger scale. And then I'd also be working on interiors and I'll also be working on furniture design, which obviously is, so you're going from, you kind of designing through different scales in the same day. I love it. I think it can be a lot for someone, but I think it had to do also a lot with how I got educated. I studied design and technology when I was in school. So for me, it comes quite naturally. So I quite enjoy it. Coming to our topic for today, which is evolving creativity in design. I've always asked myself this question, what is great design? I mean, if you open up Google today and you ask them, what's trending in interior design today, it'll come up with 10. I mean, in fact, I did it this morning, and I said, okay, what's trending in interior design today? And you'd come up with trends like shabby chic, maximalism, Japandi, modern interior design, Bauhaus, minimalism, and there's a never-ending list to what is trending, or what are the different types of interior design. And this is always it's always been a kind of situation of pause for me, because I've always wondered who decides this. One, I don't know whether you guys know, but there's also something called as dopamine design now. So it's design that's done to increase the dopamine level in a human being. And I've always wondered, what is great design? I grew up with the concept that great design is design which is timeless. I work with that notion because for me, something being timeless also means that you've been sensible about how much to design, how much to put in, how much to remove. Um, and for that, somewhere, although it's not always possible because your clients don't believe in sustainability or not interested in sustainability, but for me, if you're designing something that can survive the trends of design, then you're designing in a timeless way, which in a more luxurious market is also a sustainable way of designing, because you're not having to switch out things constantly. So the idea here is I'm going to take you through a few projects. I'm going to explain the first slide of the project in more detail. But sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm going to explain the first slide in more detail. Can you see my screen, by the way, everyone? Is that?
Yes, we can see it.
Anything needs to be removed from my screen? Is there?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, all right. So this picture just shows on top is my boss, on the left it's me, and the right is my business partner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a few of my projects. Please, I'm happy for you to ask me questions in between, interrupt me. I have no issues with that, because sometimes you guys have a question or a thought you may want to be interested in asking. And I'm going to explain myself on probably the first two slides, and then quickly take you through the project so you just get a general feel of what that entirety of that project was. I'm not going to talk through each slide. This is a project we did in Baroda. And the reason I'm showing a shot, which is actually coming from out in, is really because I feel context is very important, not just for architecture, but also interiors. We work on a lot of projects where we are the architect and the interior designer. And then we also work on projects where we are only the interior designer and we're collaborating with an architect. I feel maybe it's also my training as an architect, I have to be very honest, but I've always believed, and that's what I've learned also from my mother's studio, is that you always designed for context and environment. And even as an interior designer, where you are, the sort of palette you begin to use, the colors you use are all extremely important. In this particular scenario, we worked with the architect to really make this home very open, in the sense we wanted a lot of light coming in, even though we chose to go with darker floorings. We were really trying to bring in the environment as a part and parcel of your interior experience. The structure was designed in a way where everything was exposed. So whatever you saw as structure, you saw it, the skeleton was extremely visible. So you'll see that across this project, where you can see the round columns on the left and right, which is exposed concrete columns. You can see the mass concrete structure in the middle, which is being used as the bar, which again is the exposed structure. They are, of course, mistakes, they are deformities, they are somewhere the switchboard did come out in the right place. But as you can see, we've pretty much left it as it is, with its natural beauty, its mistakes. It's all there. It's all visible in the structure. We haven't tried to go in there and fix it. With the quantum of natural light that was coming into this project in the daytime, at night, we were very wary of having lights coming in from the ceiling. And therefore, this 80% of this project is actually lit with reflective lighting of the ceiling. So you'll have these kind of beams running on either side of the property, and you'd have lights on them, which would be bouncing light off the vineyard ceiling. Art, furniture, carpets, lights. This is what makes great design. Great design is not just about a singular thing. It's about truly understanding the tools you have available, how to best use them, what is over designing something, what is under designing something. Your clients, we have a lot of clients who want a lot. How do you begin to really understand what is it that they really want, and what are the aspects of their dreams, which I think in your generation it's called FOMO. So what is it that's just really applied to somebody having FOMO about wanting that thing? Also, where do they sit? Do they want to be luxurious? Do they want to be understated? What is the level of interaction they want with the outside? Of course, here this client has the privilege because it has the exteriors to bring in. So they sat on a large plot. Even though the built up area was only 16,000 square feet, they had the expanse of being able to be surrounded by the green. The previous image was the master bedroom. This is a guest bedroom. So as you can see, when I design in this project, there's a fluidity. I'm not doing, I sometimes hear about people talking about, and in this room, we want this sort of trend, and in that room, we want that sort of trend. I think if it works for certain interior designers, because who's to really assess what is great design? Sure. I mean, you'll have some of the top interior designers following the trend of maximalism. I like it. Can I live in it? I probably can't. I always judge design based on how it makes me feel. Design should be emotive. So how do I feel when I look at a space, an object, is how I assess design. Is my way and my approach of designing the right way? No, it's not. It is just what I can relate to. The clients who come to me will be what they see, what sort of work of mine they see. This project, which is again on a larger plot, is I did the architecture and interiors again, and from the very start, the lady of the house is a gallery owner. And from the very start, you can see the movement of art into this house. So on the left, you can see an installation. As you move in, and then the driveway, you can almost in the center of the screen, you can see another installation. And then you move into the house, and as you can see, art is a very central part of this home. The pieces of furniture that were also picked along the way were very much driven with the client's interest towards art and artistic pieces. In this particular scenario, again, I always design where you can maximize on light. I like that my homes, wherever possible, if they're not apartment buildings, you can really minimize the use of artificial lighting. So pretty much towards the evening, your artificial lights will come on. Until then, you are well lit with natural light. In this particular shot, you can see there's plants in the center. Even the planter has been customized by us to accommodate what the sort of feel we wanted. The lights used here in the ceiling, I like to connect the volume between the floor and the ceiling. And in order to make that connection, I tend to use, rather than just hanging singular chandeliers, I like to use installations which help you make that connect and make the ceiling more relatable, rather than just leaving a ceiling with a whole bunch of lights in it. We have done it also without it, but this has generally been something that I enjoy doing, and clients also understand why I like to do it, because it kind of it involves you in the entire space rather than just being kind of just being and taking in what is at the eye level and below. Again, these particular lights were also selected because they had the ability to have these little green pots in them. We were trying to connect back to the environment, to the exteriors, which is they were gardens on the left of this, which you can't see in these shots though. As you can see, as I'm also a furniture designer, a lot of the furniture pieces here, being the center table, the side table, are also designed interestingly in order to complement what the client likes, which is art. And still, there is no singular piece demanding your attention. I also believe good design is also an equalizer. There's not a singular thing demanding your attention. I think homes, especially, and I'm going to talk more about homes in this particular webinar with you, is really about the person who is living there. And I think they need to be the center spotlight. Everything else has to be an extension of them. So it's not that I don't use strong art. I will use it, but I will pause in how and where I use it and how much time a person will spend in that space. Again, more shots of the living room. That's another frontal shot. And on either side, there are doors which take you into another lounge space. This is the dining room. Again, I have been talking to you about A, connecting to the outside. B, what is absolutely crucial is, of course, really understanding how your client functions, right? So do they live in a nuclear family? Do they have other members in the house? How do they function as a family together? How do they function individually? What is the use of every room? You'll find when a lot of people are building homes, the dining room is only used when it's entertained, when they're entertaining. So all these are very important questions. To be a good designer, you also have to, in many ways, be a bit of a mind reader, and also really be a psychologist in some ways, because you are now trying to venture into understanding what a client's dreams are, and then converting them into reality, and also going through the very fine process of doing a surgery, of removing some of the things that they think they really want and saying, look, this is actually maybe not what you want. In this particular room, what we did is we connected it to the outside because the client liked and enjoyed also having a teppanyaki grill, and all of that could be done in the garden on the left, which was kind of a private dining garden. This is their casual lounge, which was connected to the two doors that I was showing you in the living room, and you come into the space, which is the bar, again surrounded by greenery. I'm showing this image because this is one of the pieces that we designed for this client. We also entered this for Edida, and we, as a studio, are very proud to say that we won the Edida Designer of the Year last year. And this was one of the entries that we had put in. This is a lounge of the same house. So you can see how things in the same space are moving. There are certain things which are continued, the feel of concrete, the veneer, but yet the stylization starts to change. The sort of light you're using is changing. The color palette is changing. But it is still, it's the lounge on the upper floor of that same house. This is an apartment, which I'm sure a lot of you would at least know of, magnolias and camellias and the DLF development. So you have certain restrictions because obviously the structure is given to you, the views are given to you, and then you have to figure out what is best you can do within that. That is also where your creativity comes out now, because the reality of it is you have constraints, right? So within those constraints, you have to figure out how to best make a unique apartment, not just spatially, but also in terms of the materiality that you use. I'm showing you two apartments in Camellias just to show you the connectivity and the differential in them and how they change because of the client. So this will primarily, when you look through this apartment, the next one is really about the color tones that you begin to use, the art you begin to use, and in general, the coloring that you're using. This is the living room of that. It connects the dining room on the extreme left, which has a stone on one of the walls. These are shots of the living space. This is the shot of the dining room, and on the right, you can see, on the right of the left image, you can see there's a stone-cladded wall. So again, even though the floor is very white, we brought in something a little more raw into the space. The veneer is a dyed veneer, so it is a very light shaded veneer that we used. When we used the yellow on the chairs, I think all of us were a bit uh, we were all wondering how it was going to turn out, but I'm happy to say that we loved it and the client loved it. But again, it's not a general palette that will appeal to everybody, but here we go. We were lucky enough, this project hit the cover of El Deco and for their 20th anniversary issue. And that was the picture they happened to pick. So we all like, we obviously got something right, which was appealing to, a larger crowd. These are just more shots of, sorry, go for it.
Yes, I was just wondering whether you'd like to take a few questions because they are related to what you are showing over
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
Okay, so let me begin with, there were two questions mainly on the material. It seems people are very fascinated by the mix of material you used in the space. So, oh, what a grand dining space. So, which materials have you used here? And the other question is also very similar to, ma'am, can you elaborate a bit on the materials you've been using majorly in your project? So, it seems there's a lot of fascination for the material combinations you have been using in your.
Well, actually, they're very valid questions because, like I said, you have to approach a space. Your materials are your tools, and how you use them, you can go horribly wrong and you can get it beautifully right. So it is, and this is not something that comes immediately also. It's, if you speak to people in my studio, they will sometimes probably call me half crazy because even when I'm trying to select the color of a table, I need the whole fabric selection out. I need what is the base floor out. I need the wall color out. I need to know the veneer we've used. Even when we're just talking about a additional table that we are now added into that space and we need to figure out the finish for it. So I don't have a perfect answer to that question. I think a lot of it comes from the privilege of having had a lot of travel be a part of my design journey. A lot of travel within India, and then of course having had the privilege to have studied abroad and that, and just the exposure of what sort of palettes work together. We take part in something called as India Design, and I remember that one year I was, I think it was 2 years ago when India Design was coming up, and we were thinking for a palette for it. And I was watching a series then, and I swear to you, there was the main actor in this particular series was wearing a jacket, and and there was a shot of him, the jacket, the trousers, the boots, the shirt, and it was one of these period series, and in the space he was traveling, and I took a snapshot of it in the place he was standing, and I took a snapshot of it, and I said, wow, what an amazing palette this is going to make. I mean, he has slightly reddish hair, and believe it or not, that is what I converted onto the canvas of my show that year. So it was the colors I picked from that thing. Design creativity comes from everywhere. You have to be very, very conscious about what are you spending your time viewing? What are you looking at it? I mean, I'll find myself even on holiday, and that's one of the, part of being in this profession. You look at everything. The color, if when someone puts a beautiful plate of food in front of you, what is it that is appealing? After all, you don't know how it's going to taste until you eat it, right? So what is it being appealing to you is the way it's presented, the colors on the plate. There has to be a certain softness of how it is presented. So
Right. So Manali, Kohelika, exactly as you mentioned, one of our participants is curious. How did you come up with these designs? If you could tell us your process. I'm sure this is one of them. Or would there be any more?
Sorry, how did I come up with?
with these designs? See, the designs you're showing over here is kind of intriguing for people who are here. How do you come up with these designs?
I mean, it's so you basically, when I was younger, and like we were just having a conversation earlier as well. I mean, I just went and spent 20 days in Bali doing a course. And again, I'm a student constantly. I'm constantly learning. And you'll find I'll travel to new places and there's a sense of curiosity. And I'll be like a little child and I want to go there and I want to see this and I want to do that. You come up with designs. I mean, everyone has a different system, but I truly believe that good designers and great designers are people who read a lot, who research a lot, who build up a visual vocabulary, and then you tap into that vocabulary depending on your context, the desire of what your client wants. There is no formula. I mean, it's not like I can produce an SOP to how to produce a K2 India design, because K2 India designs also change depending on who your client is and who and what is the context of that project, how large the project is, or how small it is, or which country it is in. I think in this presentation, there's an apartment we've done in New York as well. So there isn't a formula. It's really about surrounding yourself with the correct quantum of information, making sure that in your early years, you are in the right, you put yourself in the right studio to learn. A lot of people come to me after having worked for 4 years, and I'm like, I'm shocked that they worked for 4 years, and I wonder what they've been doing for 4 years working. And they have very limited knowledge because their studio has not exposed them to to materiality, to context, to site, and which is unfair. Like when we read a magazine, an El Deco or an AD, it goes into a place where anyone interested in the studio who wants to use it, it's available for them to use and to read. After all, you have to put in that effort into yourself to build your own visual vocabulary, because each of us has a different way of designing. It's not going to be good or bad. It's going to be different. Um, so, I mean, that's generally been my approach to design.
Right. Thank you. I think that would perhaps at least lead you, all you guys present here, to understand how Kohelika goes about designing. The process is very much what she has talked about, observation, researching, reading, keeping an eye open. So there are other things, if I may I ask some more questions, because I really thought since you are in the flow, I'm very fascinated by some of the handcrafted work that I see in your rooms. Always there is some unique piece. And congratulations on getting the award last year. But I
Thank
see
you.
that piece of the product was amazingly crafted, very beautifully thought out. Similarly, I see a lot of pieces in many rooms that you're showing here. Why is it so important for you to have a crafted product, and what does it mean for you?
Um, you know, the thing is, I like to have a little fun. Otherwise, it'll become very boring.
Mhm.
And I like to challenge myself. So a lot of the times when we design, we are lucky enough also to have clients. And I'll keep moving through these while I'm talking so that you can just understand what's also happening. A lot of times you'll have clients who are interested in having unique pieces.
Mhm.
So we work towards that. We also, we bring in color into places in a very subtle way, how we use that color. And our craftsmanship doesn't just limit ourselves to furniture, right? We move through it even in the sort of art we use. Um, so
Correct.
it's really having had the opportunity to have patrons who appreciate it also
Mhm.
becomes very important. I'm not going to lie and say that each person listening to this webinar is going to come out and be lucky enough to have clients who are going to be like, yeah, yeah, you spend this much money on handcrafted furniture. It doesn't happen. And therefore, as much as I often get slack for saying this,
Mhm.
and especially because I am an entrepreneur, um, I think entrepreneurship is also a little overrated. And I think it's very, very important to, especially, I mean, I worked before I I joined my mother as well. So I can't just say I came back to India and I joined my mother and that was it. And frankly, a lot of people think, oh my God, this must have been so easy for you because you had a mother who was established in this field. Actually, it was really hard, right? It was really hard because I'm always looked at from a point of view of my mother's face first, and then being asked like, so what do you feel about design, or how do you function? And that's also, it's if I didn't have the amazing relationship I do with my mother, I think it would have been very hard to have developed my own style
Mhm.
of how I work. So it's very kind of it's a huge privilege, I think, to uh, you can only produce great design if there are patrons who are willing to pay for it, if you understand what I mean, right? So if
Mm.
you don't have that, you will keep just doing the same thing.
Mm. Right.
Um, Sorry.
So that's quite an insight because it does matter. You may have love for a lot of these things, perhaps even quite a bit of skill, but getting patronage comes where that is where the commercial part needs to be understood. So I hope you guys really look out and hope you get such kind of clients as well. There's a very interesting question on sustainability. Are you ready to take it on? Uh,
Wait for that question because I'll come down and I'll
okay.
tell you
All
when
right.
this.
Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So guys, this is the second apartment I told you I'll show you of Camellias. You can see the palette is a sudden change, right? Now, this is more, it's like 50 shades of brown versus that was more white and, very light tones. So I'm just taking you through this for you to begin to understand in the same space, right? There are two apartments in the same space, how it can be looked at and done very, very differently. And this is how this has been done. It's a very different approach to it. The floorings are similar, they're white, but as you can see, this is a much more browner apartment. It was also an apartment for a slightly older couple. Again, you see the use of color, but it's done in a very different way to the previous apartment you saw. Um, Again, why I kind of focus more on apartments to show you is also because that is the tendency of the sort of projects most of you will get if you end up in residential design, because it's just how the country is building up. You're going to have a lot more apartments available to do versus singular houses. And this was one of the projects which we did earlier on, which again was on the cover of El Deco, I think 4 years previous to the other cover. So it also did extremely well for us. The reason I'm showing this particular project is because it's my mother's home, and B, in the process of design, we actually forget what a rich country we come from because we are so busy trying to copy the West. And then we forget that actually the West is only discovering themselves right now, where we have this rich history of what we can build from. I had the opportunity to redo my mother's home during COVID, and and I used everything that she in terms of the arts and artifacts that she owned and some of the things she wanted to turn around. But all I did is bring in a contemporary context to it. So it's a completely functional home. It's full of the things that she loves, and yet it uses a mix of periods, right? I mean, I'll just go back to an image here. You'll have modern pieces, which are the side tables. You'll have a rulement chair, which you can see in the left. So in her house, while she has lived an X number of decades, her house is also reflective of that. And it's not always that you have to have furniture from or styling from only a particular period. I think the most beautiful homes are those that talk about their client and bring the history of that client together. This is an apartment in New York. You can see suddenly there's a huge change to what one has been up to, right? The colors, the feel, the look, the style of furniture one has used. So again, you always take it to your context, right? And your biggest player in your context is your client, and that's where you begin to put things together from. You were brought up a question of sustainability, and I'm going to jump a couple of slides ahead. Just to quickly move through this starts talking a little bit more about the attention. We start specifically talking about furniture pieces designed for spaces. So these are very specifically chosen pieces which we have designed for that particular client. And of course, I mean, it'll become part of our collection, but it started off designing it for a particular space. Now, that also is a privilege, right? Because it's a privilege because we have the capacity and the capability of being a designer and do carpentry work. So we are in a position to take an idea and convert it into a product to put in that house. So one is lucky enough to do that and build from that. So please ask your question on sustainability now. And
Right. So, well, Manali is asking, can you please um, tell us a little more about sustainability? What does it mean to you as well? So, if you could elaborate a little bit more from your point of view.
So listen, in the luxury market, you want the honest answer. Sustainability is a hoax. It's just this big name that's being, on every I don't know, kind of every platform one seems to be asked to speak on, and people are talking about and everyone's like, so sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. And I don't think a lot of people are actually being sustainable, right? I'm not, to be very honest. And it's very hard to be sustainable in the luxury market. I mean, you talk about something as simple as solar energy, and using solar powering in a house. And a client goes and says, well, I don't have the budget to invest in solar panels right now because it's that much more expensive. And we are talking to them about it. Oh, but you'll reap the benefits of this in 5 years or 10 years. And he's like, well, I don't want to spend it today because our government doesn't give you a subsidy to be sustainable, frankly. In the work we do, like I started off by telling you, if you design something which is timeless, right, you are automatically feeding into a sustainable environment. Why? Our client is not going to break it down, not going to rebuild it. So when we design, our design philosophy and processes that we design for the next 15 years for that family. So for the next 15 years, they may change fabric, they may change an artwork, but they're not going to break down a brick wall. So we are thinking about what is the age group of this family? Are these people going to go off to college? Is another member going to be added into this family? And that is our way of looking at sustainable design. When we talk about furniture, we started doing a bunch of things. I don't know about how much carbon footprint, etc., that we are, removing at all. So I want to be very honest about it. But for example, this particular piece, if you look at the texturing, we have a lot of cardboard, right? We pack furniture, we ship it. When we deliver furniture to a client's house, this cardboard comes back. Some of it is made usable, some of it is gone into small pieces. What do you do with it? It usually gets trashed. So we keep all of that. And then we've built this kind of pattern out of card. We kind of make this base out of cardboard. And then for our design, we took those pieces of cardboard. Some of the indentations on it are natural. So I don't know how clearly you guys can see these lines in this particular table, or the dents. Those are natural. Some of them are me ripping the cardboard out to create a certain pattern that I want. So we've used material that technically would have been thrown away to create a base for something then which we have gone and casted. Is that sustainable? I don't know, but I'm trying to reuse a lot of stuff that we would generally throw out. I'll take you forward a little bit. This is us taking part in the shows I was talking to you about, the sort of furniture that we do. So I'm going to come ahead to something else which potentially maybe, yeah, I mean, if you look at this mirror, unfortunately, I don't have a close-up of it, but this entire mirror is made, the form is made out of HDMR board. And on it is used thread and fabric to create the pattern on it. Now, where does this thread and fabric come from? It comes from our upholstery department, because so much of it is cut, wasted. So we use it, we tear it, we further tie it. The legs of this bench is created, the base cast for it is all created by taking fabric and tying it up and making a certain pattern out of it, which is all recycled, because otherwise it's katran and would have been thrown out.
Mhm.
So I don't have a correct answer to sustainability. Everyone seems to be talking about sustainability and asking about sustainability, but I don't really know as a country in India what we're truly doing about sustainability. I mean, I was amazed. I spent 20 days in Indonesia in June. And you can go to the smallest little village, okay? And you will still find that they have three different bins, right? For when you're discarding things or discarding food. And we just can't get our act together here. So it's the sustainability scene is, I think, very sad in India, to be very honest.
Mm. That's true. So I think that's great to hear a designer talk of sustainability without that awe-inspiring words, which are always spoken about and somehow unreachable for many of us. So I like the way that you talked about simple things, picking up the waste which is left over and try to do something with that. There's a question from Vandana who talks about as a designer, at times you feel like giving up and the work becomes really tedious, especially when it is hectic. How do you cope up with these things? How do you keep yourself going? Would you be able to shed some light on that?
Um, Vandana, honestly, today it's such a tricky situation, right? Because when I'm assuming a lot of you are still in school, okay, or most of you in school. Am I right? They in school?
No, I think some of them are, but there are many people who are from outside. They are young
So
designers, all get wanting to hear you. So
okay, so what happens today is once you hit the real world, right? You throw and to be brutally honest, you throw a stone and you'll hit an interior designer today. Okay. When whether they are qualified to be an interior designer, whether they actually have the creativity or the ability to be an interior designer is a different conversation. But our immediate world is full of interior designer. Then our immediate world is full of clients looking at Pinterest images or Instagram. So you will often have, especially as a young designer who's still establishing themselves, you'll often have a client walk in and say, "मुझे तो ऐसे चाहिए and ये चाहिए," and they'll produce 10 images in front of you, and then someone like me will pose the question and saying, "Okay, but then why have you come to me?" Because you can pretty much go to many designers if you already have the concept who will simply convert for you, right? If somebody comes to me, I'm looking that I'm going to give insight into the design process and something which I'm going to bring something unique to the table. So there are many frustrating moments, and I think it's very important to find something else to do, right? In the sense that something else that helps you burn off steam. I think everything you do in life can lead you to design, whether it is taking short breaks, traveling.
mhm.
You must pause at different times of the year. Take time out for yourself, whether it is you going off, I don't know, if you're sporty, going off to play basketball, whether it is you going off on a 3-day diving trip, whether it is you going cycling from here to Ladakh. I think it's very, very important to take time away to re-collaborate your mind, because you can't, if you want to be a designer who's just churning out projects, sure, look at Pinterest, you'll get 50 ideas when you put in the right keywords and you can keep churning out projects. But if you're someone who wants to value your sanity, your design process, I think you sometimes need to move away from it as well. The other thing I want to say is also that I know I'm repeating myself on this, but you know, I think it's very important to have the right mentor when you come out of college. I don't think when people have come out, I did, and that's why I say and I mean, I had two great jobs before I joined. I created this company with my mom, and it's not easy having a mentor because they're going to be your best friend on certain days and your biggest critic on other days. And however, you are guided through a process, right? Or for the first 4 or 5 years of the design, your design journey out of college, which may be their process, but at least you are learning firstly, of course, you find to work with someone whose work you respect. I'm not talking about just join any studio and then make them your mentor. I'm being very that you have an informative decision as to which studio you join to do your first job. And that's you must be able to relate or respect that process of working. And that is very important in also you learning the right way to handle your frustrations in the design process. And so why I say I keep repeating myself is because I'm not for coming out of college and starting my own company and saying, okay, I've taken a loan from Papa and he's going to, fund me, and now I'm an interior designer. And a lot of you are probably like hating me for saying this, but I truly believe that. I started working. I mean, I started working when I was 19, and I started, I started working in 19, meaning in architect's office. I worked all through college. And I'm going to be 44 in December. So I'm talking from some experience of what I see going on out there, the quality of learning people are getting, which is not great. The quality of experiences people are getting in their first 3 years, which is not great at all. And then a whole bunch of people saying, oh, I know everything after college and I'm going to start my own company. So yeah,
Mhm.
so sorry if I've offended a couple of people there.
Not at all. I think this is something probably they would like to hear from somebody who's gone through that experience. I just have few personal questions to ask you, personal with my questions, because I was trying to give the others questions to you first. One thing is about, you said you were a carpenter in your introduction, and I really love that quote because I wanted to understand what did it mean? Is it about really working with your hands, getting deep into something? Because that's, is that why your products are looking different, or they are looking unique, or they, because you're choosing them to be different? What is that story?
Um, So I've always liked working with my hands. I did a lot of it when I was in even in high school and college because I ended up in England on a scholarship, on a part scholarship to a school called Millfield, and I studied design technology as part of my A levels. And one of the courses in design technology, you had woodshop as one of your
Mhm.
modules that you had to do.
Mhm.
And I realized, and obviously there was a background, we had factories. I mean, they were small boutique factories, but still there were factories in India, right? So I always had an interest towards that. I find that so I kind of picked up on the talent. Then when I worked for Norman Foster in London, I used to work mostly in the model shop because they found I was very quick and fast with converting drawings into models.
Mhm.
So then okay, again, I used to find myself in the wood shop of Norman Foster's studio, um, and I find that being having the ability. So I mean, so I can like I just started learning pottery, right? So
Mhm.
this is exactly what I say to you, that I think it's very important that people don't arrive at a point where they say, now I know everything. Okay, because every material, the way it reacts when even this conversation about materials, if you don't play with your materials, if you don't understand your materials, how do you know what your material can do for you, right? Now, who was going to think that cardboard could become the base product for me to cast for a table that's going to win me the Adidas, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't think it was going to happen. We were just fooling around, and trying to come up with something to do.
Mhm.
Um, and So unless I work with my hands and did that fooling around with my own hands, for me, I wouldn't have got there. Now, also, I come from a generation where we started learning in architecture school by hand drafting, and AutoCAD kind of came in almost in the last year of college, right?
Mhm.
So we taught ourselves AutoCAD also because that's when we went into the workforce, we had to know how to use AutoCAD. But a lot of things we did was all sketching. So for me to be able to work with my hands is something that works for me. And therefore, it drove me more towards actually doing a lot of the final parts. Like I can express my design to the craftsmen I work with to a certain extent, but then I find it much easier for myself when I get into it and do it myself to get that final twist, turn, indent, because I'm not being able to explain it perhaps. But now everyone doesn't need that, right? You've got so many 3D kind of programs that can help you design and derive different shapes, forms, and the connections of those forms in a much easier way. So I don't want to say that, oh, guys, you should have multiple skill sets to be a great interior designer. No, that's not at all what I'm suggesting. It's the way my journey went down. And does it work for me? Sure. Do I wake up certain days and think, crap, could I wish I had a better skill on learning this particular 3D program? And it's on my bucket list, very honestly. I'm like, I'm going to crack that in January of 2025 because I want to learn how to use that program. Also, when you become an entrepreneur, you're not just dealing with design, you're dealing with admin, HR, multiple other issues. So a lot of your own desires of what you can do in your free time get locked up, and therefore I keep encouraging people, work for someone really good, make them realize your true value so they know they will pay you to keep you. And then you have free time to do XYZ and to really figure out what are the other additional things you're doing. Like I've started doing pottery because I find and I may give it up for all I know, but I mean I've started doing it because it was something I was always inquisitive about, right? The clay works for me, and what can I do with it as a material going forward. So I hope that answered the question, but
Wow. I must say that these are things which all of us should look at and say, wow, can I sit and, bang a nail into the wood and check out what I can do? Just one more question, and then I'm going to ask anybody to speak up if they would like to. So I see a lot of artwork in your interiors, and perhaps all from many different artists. I know that you patronize or you sort of support many artists personally that I know of. But I would like you to tell the group over here. One is art, and the other is lamps. You have beautiful lamps in your room, in your houses, very different from each other. I don't know whether you are specially in touch with some designers whom you really value because of the uniqueness of their work. But lamps and art, very, very different in every interior. And they are very, very premium in terms of design quality. How did you develop this?
so to be honest, one has grown up looking at art, and one is always looking for young art.
Okay.
And so one keeps oneself well informed regarding the masters who are already there, and then the young artists who are coming up. And yes, I like to I think it's hard for artists because they soak, and sometimes when you're extremely creative, you don't really know how to sell it. I also believe that if you don't get in touch with the right gallery, you can be taken advantage of. So we are in touch with a bunch of galleries, some artists directly. We work with different people. We always kind of help promote them. As part of the question relating to lights, we work with a lot of international brands for the lights, and a few that produce in India as well. And it's again, it's about increasing your visual vocabulary, because you keep looking at data and data and data when you're traveling, when you're looking at magazines on Instagram, on Pinterest, while reading, and you then begin to identify what are beautiful pieces of furniture or lights. Every light will not fit in every project, right? So then you have to keep banking that data, and then you find the project, and then you find the patron for that project who, that making sense, and then you suddenly pull this out of your hat and saying, look, I think this will work beautifully in the space. So it's a lot of putting the right things, and I meant that in a sarcastic way, that you throw a stone, you'll hit an interior designer, which is kind of sad, because I don't think good interior designing is such a simple skill. It's in fact a highly, highly complicated skill. And I think that you have to take in a lot of data before you can actually be producing amazing work, because everyone can take 10 images off Pinterest and copy it. I mean, it's really not that hard anymore, right? But are you producing or are you designing in a unique way? You have to constantly kind of check in with yourself to say, okay, is that being unique? Sorry, am I still there?
Yes, you are there. We can hear you very well.
All right. So I'll just run these photos down, and then if anyone has any questions, they can shoot out. These are all pieces we've done for the fairs we take part in. This particular piece down here is a cross section of cardboard. And then again, these legs are made out of rope. This is actually rattan, which is casted in order to make this particular pattern. And again, the legs are made out of rope. So yeah, these are just different series of furnitures we did over different fairs that we took part in. So these are actually the images of the pieces of furniture and the stall. So if anyone has any questions, please, I'm happy to.
Yes, there are two more questions noted here. Can I read them out to you?
Yeah, go for it. I'll just take you through.
So, what are your weaknesses as an interior designer?
I have many. And I would probably say patience is one of them now. I think being a good designer, you require a lot of patience. Sometimes I'll find that I run out of it. I'm also a bit eccentric. That means I could be in the middle of a project and then I'll have to call up a client and say, for 2 weeks, I really can't attend to this. But I also have the privilege of being able to do that because I have set myself up to a certain point where the clients know that if I'm asking for a break, I'm going to come back with something better, right? So I sometimes need to disconnect. I don't know whether you want to call it a weakness. I think sometimes it can be deterring. I see it as a weakness. I'm not a trend-based designer. I half the time don't know what is trending. And I also limit myself. I mean, if you look at my Instagram profile, I'm constantly accused that I should be way more active, and I'm not. So that's a weakness, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think those are, and no, and my biggest weakness is I wish I want to learn more. I want to learn more skills on programs. And so if any of you know of people who can potentially spend some time and teach me, I'm very happy because I keep trying to find out and then nobody wants to come and teach me. And then I have to go to one of these places. And unfortunately, when you become an entrepreneur, those privileges don't exist for you anymore. And when I can go to one of these places who can teach me more programs, it's like, can I come at 8:30 in the evening? And they're like, no, we're shut. So, and I'm not asking for free. I'm happy to pay somebody to come and teach me. But that is something that I really wish I want to work on improving, is to have a larger skill set of what programs can do for you and what AI can do for you. And I haven't jumped onto that as yet. So that's on, I really wanted to start working on that.
So honestly, we'll try to look for a person for you on Kohelika, and hopefully we can find something for you. There's a last question. Sorry, guys, after this, Kohelika has spoken so much. I don't want to make her talk some more. But one last question is, can you tell us how to build one's own one's enterprise for future?
I am the wrong person. I think I have made many mistakes. And if you've been listening to me, I have seriously been discouraging you guys from doing that. So I don't think honestly, I can't, I'm not the right person to comment on it. I am an entrepreneur by default, because I was working in England, I was working in the US, and I had no plans of really coming back very soon. But for certain family reasons, demanded it, and I moved back. And then, and then I looked and looked for jobs. But after you worked with certain people, I was working for one of the top-notch designers in New York called Oliver Cope Designs, and then I worked for Norman Foster. And after you work for people like that, and I'm talking about 2004, right? So when you move back, there was barely anyone doing any original work in India. Now the situation is really, really different. So that's why I'm saying entrepreneurship is a hoax now. And at that time, you just couldn't find people you really wanted to work with who were not just copying the West and were having original ideas. So I kind of went into entrepreneurship as a default. I'm constantly cribbing to my business partner and saying, this is just rubbish. I'm having to deal with admin issues and this issue and that issue, and versus all I want to do is design. So sorry, boss, I can't really help you on that. What is the right tool to become an entrepreneur? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And I'm not really bought into this whole entrepreneurship either, as you can still, I'm even cribbing about myself. So,
Despite whatever you say, I think your talk has been very inspiring. All the attendees over here have written a lot of inspiration, that you inspire us, etc. However, I do want you guys to be in touch with us. If you'd like to get to Kohelika with any questions, please forward it to us. We'll see that. We'll check with her whether she's able to answer them later on. But thank you, Kohelika. You were
thank you for having me.
So forthright, so insightful with how you work. This would definitely be motivating for all the attendees over here. And we hope that many of you will take these words and her experience to what you can do for yourself. Thank you very much, Kohelika. And thank you guys for attending. We'll see you later sometimes.